Fellas, I'm working my way through all of these challenge locks, and I come on one by unknown pinning. He says, got a note that says, drum roll please, a custom pin lock, marked with unknown pinning. But I don't see that marked anywhere, but it doesn't matter. We got the key, there you see mummified, and I don't even think we need to take it off. You see it's a Schlage, and just based on the size, I'm going to guess a 5-pinner, but no idea what's in there. Let's find out. Let's see what unknown pinning's got for us. And I'm going to get a piece of leather and just wrap it around here so we don't crush it in the vise. That ought to do it. Alright, pretty wide open keyway. I'm going to try. The tip of that key might cause a problem. No, I think we're alright. I'll just go clockwise and away from that key so it shouldn't interfere. And wide open keyway, so I am going to try a 15 thousandths that I made. These are handles that I made on my 3D printer. This is just a standard hook and works out pretty good. 15 thousandths ought to fit in there without too much trouble. I'm trying to count the pins and also get a feel for the springs. And it feels like they're all the same or very close to it. Nothing really sticks out. Alright, let me turn it just a bit. Let's see if we can get inside of here. I'm choosing 15 thousandths because I can either go from the side, this little ledge, or if I need to, like to get into the back, I can go from the bottom. It only drags just a little bit. And maybe that's too much. I'll go from the side here. Alright, light tension. And see if I can find a binder right off the bat. I gotta click on 3. That was 2. And something just dropped. I'm going to have to tighten that up just a little more. Starting to flex on me just a little. Okay, definitely 3 is bound all the way at the bottom, it feels like. And he's the only one. Everybody else is real springy, so I'm going to let off my tension a little bit. Try to go from the bottom on 3. Yeah, 3's definitely bound up. I'm going to reset, and I bet I got something out of order. Yeah, I'm on 3, and okay, that was a click on 3. Okay, that was 2, and I felt a very slight turn on the core. That was 3 again, another click on him. Got really light tension on here. Maybe I should, this doesn't, okay, that was pin 2, and I got a good turn on the core. If I don't get something quick, I'm going to start trying to force him. Okay, that was a click on 4. And those are bound up now. Okay, that was 2 again. Get a little counter rotation there on 1. And I got to click on him, and that stopped. Okay, 4 is all the way to the bottom. Yeah, I get no counter rotation on him. Okay, I'm going to try something with a little bit deeper hook. Same thing, 3D, one I made myself, 15 thousandths. Actually, this one is 14 thousandths. I made it a little bit thinner, and just on the hope that it would let me squeeze by some of these tight keyways, and doesn't really work. As you see, it still gets hung up. Anything thinner than 14 I think is probably too thin. Alright, I'm on 3, I got counter rotation, and there we go. Alright, so 3 is probably a spool. Alright, let's see what we got here. Unknown pinning. There's not only so much you can do with a 5-pin lock. So let's see what unknown pinnings come up with. There it is. Oh, up. Okay, well, it was up. This gives me a bad feeling. This might lead me to believe that there's no springs in this one. Let's find out. All right, move this out of here, get the pinning board. Yeah, if we use no pins, it makes it very prone to oversetting, and also makes the lock unreliable because there's no recovery if you overset something, your host, and also, oops, need that. And the other thing is, if a little piece of grit gets in there, there's no spring to push it back down, that pin is going to stay blocking the shear line. So let's see what we need here. So try to stay away from using no springs. I realize it's tricky and makes good, interesting for a challenge lock, but it makes for unreliable lock as well. All right, we got some threading I can see right away, at least in the first chamber. Let's go ahead and dump this stuff out. Maybe. He didn't want to come out of standard. We got a reduced diameter on the top of that pin. This one also looks like reduced, at least from the top. And there we go. It is reduced on the top. Pin 4. And that looks like a standard. And 5 is not a spool. It is, well, serrated / spool. Okay, again, taking a look here, I see 3 threaded chambers, number 1, number 4, and number 5. I see no countermilling, but it looks like we've chamfered the top of this a little bit, and that might make the shear line a little wider. It might make it just a little bit easier to pick. I don't know if you did that or if the lock just came that way. All right, let's take a look upstairs. Okay, he says up, so I'm kind of, let's see what happens. Okay, we got a spring on the first one, and it's a commercial spool. All right, the second one is a homemade, and he's got a little serration in him. And let's pull the springs. I've seen you guys using different springs lately. This is a double spring. Take a look at one inside and one outside. So that was on pin 1. And the second one is a little brass, very light resistance. I didn't notice that when I was picking it, to be honest with you. Okay, number 3 is looks like a standard. And let's see what we got. It's just a standard steel spring. You can tell by my magnetized tweezers. The next one is looks like a serrated. And I don't see a spring in there. There he is. Okay, there's another one of these little brass ones. And the last pin, very powerful. I don't know if you heard that thing spring up or not, but it's a reduced diameter, more like a spool. So I think we hit that one on the head. And the last spring, okay, there he is. I was going to say there is no spring, but he's just barely hanging in there. Little brass guy. Come on out of there. He does not want to come out. Oh. Now, there we go. Brass with the steel one around it. So double spring on number 5. Again, I didn't feel that. You would think with double springs you'd get some pretty serious resistance, but I didn't notice that. On the top, I don't think there's any modifications. The brass, it's bright brass, like it's been worked recently, but then when you look at this, you still see the stakes in place. So it's probably nothing on the inside. I don't see any threading. There could be countermilling, but I don't see it. Yep, I think we're perfectly stock on the top. So there you go. We have a modified core. And in terms of the pins themselves, you notice we have a steel standard, 2 reduced diameter key pins, a standard key pin, and actually if you look closely at him, he's not even a key pin. He's a driver pin in the key position. And the same with this guy. He's a driver pin in the key position, but he's got some serrations on him. On the top we have a reduced diameter. I don't really know what we would call that. It's not a spool, it's not a serration, it's kind of a reduced diameter to get caught up in there. Remember, chamber number 5 was threaded. Chamber number 4 was also threaded, and we got that little serrated one to deal with to get caught up. So unknown pinning put a lot of thought into that. Number 2 had no serrations, but we have a serrated or a reduced diameter. And then, and then number 1, standard spool. There you go. Pretty good job. There's only so much you can do with a 5-pin Schlage core. I think you made the most of it by at least threading it and putting in some tricky springs and some handmade pins. So pretty good job on your first attempt. Unknown pinning. Good job. Thanks for your time, fellas. Stay safe. Stay legal. Alright, fellas, I always forget to show the key. This was underneath the pinning tray, completely slipped my mind. Out of sight, out of mind. But this is what we're looking at. It looks like completely stock, nothing too crazy about this. The nice thing about it, we have a low cut pin protecting these high cut ones, so if you overset pin number 1, you are ho. So from a stock keying or stock bitting, this really isn't too bad. But just for you guys who want to see the key, that's what we had to work with.